and we have a very special guest today, Margit Noll. Did I pronounce that correctly? Good. Who is the chair of JPI, Urban Europe Management Board. And she has been involved with the development of the Urban Europe Initiative from the beginning of 2009 and is in charge of strategic development and the implementation of the program, which comprises international outreach, establishment of strategic partnerships, and stakeholder involvement. And she's currently, is this correct, employed by the Austrian Research Promotion Agency, FFG, yes. So let's give a warm welcome to Margit Noll, who is going to give an address.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure being here again in Helsinki. For a couple of years, I wasn't able to really come here again, but as Finland and Tekes in particular is one of our core partners in our program, it's a pleasure to be here and give you a bit of an update where we are and what we are doing. Before going into the details of JPI Urban Europe, I want to come back to the notion of the smart city, as it was already discussed from the previous speakers and keynotes. And if you listen closely to them, all of them had a bit of a different view on what a smart city is and could be. If we start by looking at the city's view, what is a smart city, then you end up by something like a smart city is one where data and technology are used to improve people's lives. This is the statement of the city of Portland, which uses the data issue, the smart city issue, as a mean to help improve the people's life and quality of life in the city. A similar definition is used by the city of Vienna in a way that they really use smart cities to look at the people's context to improve technological innovations, but also social innovation, that they are dealing with different forms of governance and public participation to ensure that everyone benefits from what smart cities offers. So if you look at those definitions, technology is part of that, but it never is an end to itself. So when we look at the smart city, when it started many years now ago, from a very technological, digital-driven perspective, it broadened a lot in the way how we can use that and what we can really take from those new technologies, those new products and those services to really do something good for society. And in that sense, we should just be aware that there is no strong consensus on what a smart city actually is. We heard in the morning the view on it's about the technologies, the infrastructure, the service, digitalization to various systems. At the same time, we heard the city of Helsinki also emphasizing it's about the people that we need to talk about. So then, where are we now? Instead of really having a focus, smart city is quite a very broad context and concept. So there is also the statement that we see a lot of, also in the context of the European Commission funding, a lot of support for these technological services, improving the systems, new business solutions. But what we underestimated, I think all of us, is the complexity that it brings to the city itself, to how they need to deal with those technologies, how they would need to innovate their procedures, their governance approaches to take highest use of that. So while, of course, it is essential to take the systems forward, to improve the infrastructure, take the technology further, innovate these systems. At the same time, it is essential to really deal with the wider set of how we can use that to improve the cities, how we improve that to enhance the quality of life. What does that mean for the people? It was mentioned in the panel discussion before already. But we need to take bigger steps here to get them involved, all of our cities, not only the early adopters, not only those that are used to those technologies anyway. So there is a lot to do in terms of the wider setting of the smart city. And if we look, and based on the definition that cities are using, it's a lot about sustainable development, using smart as a way and as a mean to the end of a more sustainable urban future. And a bit in the contrary, if we look at the literature and of what we really see in academics, we see the world of sustainable cities and we see the world of smart cities, and they are not really connected at the moment, right? We are putting a lot of emphasis on the smart city digitalization, improving services, products, infrastructures. At the other hand, we have the sustainable approach with a more broader setting of improving the quality of life, improving the systems from a different point of view. So what we are convinced that we need to do is get them closer together, really use the smart way of dealing with urban matters to reach the goal of sustainable urban development, of more livable urban futures. So I think this is a challenge here if we want to take the next step towards smart, sustainable, resilient, whatever kind of better futures in our cities. We need to better combine them and take really use of the technological business solutions that have developed so far. And as a framework that we now have in place, we can just use the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations and the new urban agenda of UN Habitat 3, which clearly provides the setting and the ambition of where we need to move. No matter if we are talking about the global north or global south, it's just the way that we need to improve our cities. And they really provide a framework that, of course, addresses business solutions, but at the same end, it puts so much effort on the governance and on the participation of people in all that urban planning and urban development to get their commitment to take the next step together and not just putting new solutions and new services on top on all of them. So the question is, how does this new urban agenda resonate or maybe also dissonate with our European priorities around smart, resilient, sustainable, innovative, entrepreneurial, sponge, whatever kind of city imaginary you might have in mind for your city. So the issue is, how can we bring them together? How can we take the highest potential of those smart solutions in the context of sustainable urban development? So here we are, and here is one approach to deal with that. JPI Urban Europe is a transnational research and innovation program. Tekes and Akka Finland as partners in that. Tekes right from the beginning as one of the core members, helping us, shaping it, framing it, a joint research and innovation program that wants to take a bigger step together on sustainable urban development. At the moment, we have 20 European countries joining in. We have some international activities ongoing as well, but the core is here in Europe. And what we want to do is develop research and innovation, providing funding together as the European countries that are interested in that to, what has been just mentioned, compare, exchange, challenge your good Finnish solutions with other European countries. Use your experiences and examples to maybe help other European cities to take a next step here. So this is the context that we are setting up in. It's up and running since 2010. And we are now with this global framework of the Sustainable Development Goals and SDG 11 on smart and sustainable cities in particular, we have a framework that we can fit in and directly contribute to. At the same time, we want to be the European hub for urban research. We want to build the community and the capacity in Europe to deal with different kinds of urban issues together, based on strong national programs, based on the Tekes programs, the activities of Akka Finland, to join that with the ones of FFG, of NWO in all the other countries, all the programs that are up and running, to bring them together to build a community that is stronger than if we just do it alone. And in the way that we're not only funding the projects, but we want to provide evidence for policymakers and decision makers in the cities. And this is, as we also heard maybe in the morning, this is of course a challenge. We have all these research projects, these innovation projects, but then we need to translate that into hands-on solutions. And really to bringing together these various actors from academia, from research, innovation, policymakers, city administration, civil society organizations, that's at the core of what we're doing. We have set up a strategic research and innovation agenda that's publicly available for those who don't know that yet. It has 5 thematic priorities, but at the core, it's about urban transitions. So this green spiral in the middle really defines the main effort that we are taking. How can we provide decision makers? How can we help cities and all the actors that are taking actions and investing in the city to take decisions towards a better future that's built upon the scientific evidence that has been created and still is created in so many different kind of projects. And this requires different kinds of actions. What one of the key issues is, in order to support urban transitions from now to a better sustainable, better livable future, how can we support this kind of co-creation? It was addressed in the morning panel already. How can we bring them together in a way that they share their expertise, that they share their needs, that science better understand what research really needs to deal with to help and bring forward new concrete solutions, to help city makers understand those opportunities that they have based on new scientific evidence. How can we mobilize those stakeholders to really engage in research and innovation, that they are part of those developments, not only taking use whatever comes out at the end of a project, but be really part of that? And how can we build the capacity that is needed to change our urban settings, to change the ways how decisions are made, how the processes, urban development is done in the cities? So one of the key issues that we are dealing with and really fostering in our projects are urban living labs. So we need to come from observing a city to really engaging and mobilizing all these various stakeholders. And if we look at our projects, and the first results are available in our project catalog. I've brought a couple of copies with me, so I think somewhere at the back you can pick those copies up if you're interested. We try to highlight those labs, and about half of our more than 50 projects that we're now funding are using labs in the city, in cities throughout Europe, to really use neighborhoods, local cases, test beds, experimental zones, however you want to call that, as a framework to bring all these expertise together, to experiment. It was mentioned by the mayor of Helsinki. I think we need experimentation, and we fully underline that. We fully support that through all our projects. Experiment, pilot, test, do it. Try new kinds of partnerships and procedures. So some of our projects don't only use the labs, but really try to understand how does an urban living lab work. So here is one example. Our UrbanX project developed a lab kit for everyone who wants to experiment with a living lab, who wants to understand what do I need to do if I want to set up a living lab in my city. There's looks like a game. You have a lot of cards with questions that you should answer beforehand, before you really start up and do that. So there are some pilot activities ongoing in three cities to use those contexts. There is another project, the GUST project, which developed a guideline. How do you set this up? How can a living lab work, and what are the key issues, the different objectives that you might have, the different requirements? What do you need to put in place? How do you manage it? Who should run it? How could you implement that on a longer term scale? So there are a couple of experiments ongoing on that. Some other examples, just as some highlights of our projects from the Smart City and Communities call. The Kodaloop project also deals with how to change behavior in terms of how you use energy and how you maybe can improve the energy efficiency in households. This is not only putting the technologies in place, putting the smart meters somewhere. This needs working with the citizens, letting them experiment. What does that mean? How can I take use of those technologies, and what are the implications for policy making in the cities? How can they stimulate that? How can they support this? So this is, again, some living lab cases in Amsterdam, Graz, and Istanbul, to understand how such an online platform for data sharing can look like, and what are the implications of that? How is that from the side of the citizens, how they anticipate that, are they using that, what are the issues here, and what are the policy innovations that go hand with that to roll that out maybe in a wider sense, or setting up specific policies on the side of the cities. Another case, like the IntegraCity project, again, 3 cases. One is in Geneva. This is a project that is dealing with the decisions on energy infrastructure investments. How can you deal with the different kinds of energy infrastructure that you put in place? Might that be different gas networks, central heating systems, different kinds of sources that you're using, and usually the decisions are made individually, so there is no overview of these different kinds of energy supply that you might want to use. So if you're investing in a new system, how can you well integrate that? What are the really requirements if you want to have a more integrated perspective on your energy network? So there might be some conflicts with if you integrate renewable energy sources. There might be some synergies with power and gas networks or with other kinds of networks that you have already implemented. And this tries to set up a decision-making system that should help you identify conflicts, synergies, potentials to really focus and optimize your future investments for that. Again, another energy-related concept that combines the mobility and energy context in terms of electric vehicles and electric mobility, to understand as well the consumer needs about their behavior, their choices, and the policy context, using gamification as a mean to engage with the citizens and test different kinds of options here. Another interesting project, the Play You See, also using gamification as a mean to let people understand the complexity of decision making. We all know that people in the cities complaining, why does that look like it does? Why didn't take another kind of decision? So decision making is a complex matter, but it's not obvious maybe for everyone how complex it might be. So using different cases on the energy system, the migration case and urban mobility, to understand how do these decisions come along, and what does it mean in terms of boundary conditions, different kinds of opportunities. So they developed a game together with the cities in order to understand and let people experiment with, if we take that decision, what are the consequences of that? If we ignore this condition, what does that mean for the final setting? And of course, that's meant to involve the people on the streets, to let them play a bit what could be urban futures mean for our city, but it meant also a lot for those that developed the game, that for the city administration that was involving in designing that, what they learned along the process. So these are just a couple of results, more in our brochure and on our website. One issue that I would like to bring your attention to is it's an open call. It's not upcoming, it's already there and open for all of you. And that could be a very interesting case, in particular for those that are very much engaged in the innovation end of research and innovation. It's called Making Cities Work. It builds upon several of our previous projects, which are more classical research and innovation projects, but this takes it a step further. This is about taking it as far to implementation as we are allowed based on our frameworks and the regulations. It's challenge-driven. It calls for challenge-driven projects with the potential towards the next steps and implementation. It's definitely calling for a very strong involvement of cities, city administration, business, other intermediaries, civil society organizations, and of course researchers. But the focus should be really understanding the specific needs of cities and answering that in the context of a research project. As mentioned, partners can be from all over the innovation and the stakeholder spectrum. It definitely projects need at least one city and one business partner in the whole consortium. You need to have partners from at least 2 countries, and the deadline is end of February. So there is still time to set this up, but I would expect that Tekes already has some activities in place to help you shaping those projects. It's a pilot exercise. We are trying to go beyond the classical framework that we usually have in our transnational cooperation. So we are piloting ourselves with our instruments. This is why we have this time a rather small consortium of the funders, 5 countries, those that are more really towards innovation dimension. And we have selected 5 topics, 4 topics, and these topics have been developed with cities, using cities and their cases as the starting base to really develop those topics. So it's about urban mobility, it's about implementing smart, sustainable cities. So how can we really bring all these sectors, all these different stakeholders on board to do it? It's about creating the city together, closing the gap between these various views, requirements, and it's about construction sites. How can we improve those in terms of their different kinds of negative impact, dealing with energy, mobility, logistics issues on construction sites. So these are the first cases that we're looking into. And we very much hope also for a strong engagement of the Finnish community, as I'm sure due to your portfolio of projects funded by Tekes in your national context, you have a good starting base to maybe take it a bit further, compare it with other cities, with other cases, benefit and contribute to other projects as well. Just as a reminder, there is another upcoming call in the China cooperation, and this should open then hopefully early next year, where we start and continue our international cooperation on that. So with that, I think I would like to end here. We do have a lot of activities ongoing in terms of stakeholder involvement, so we are very much looking forward to connecting to you as smart city experts, having your projects, your activities in your cities or in your universities and business. We are very much open to understand your views on that, your solutions, your questions, your issues. We are just starting with updating our strategy beginning of next year. There will be a public consultation starting soon, and we will communicate that through Tekes and our contacts and colleagues here. And we would hope that you take that opportunity to really engage, put forward your issues, help us shaping a long-term, future-oriented agenda for the next coming years. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm wondering, do we have time for, you had a plane to catch?
Yeah, but still.
Oh, you have time.
Minutes,
okay.
I guess.
I had a list of questions, but how about if I ask you one? Yeah? So then you can be on your way. Thank you very much, very interesting. I love the idea of the lab kit so that everybody can participate, and the idea of play, keeping it fun, keeping it for everybody. So my question to you is, what is needed in Europe to stay at the top of the smart city field?
To stay at the top. I think it's the term of how we manage to realize that. How can we take the next step to a broader scale implementation? We heard in the morning like ABB, and there are many other businesses and cases. Solutions are there, right? Mm-hmm. And there, the European Commission and Europe is investing a lot in bringing that into business. So there are new funds, there are new opportunities in Europe available to take the next steps, create marketplaces. What we are convinced is that it takes, in addition to all that, it needs a framework to really work together and make it happen. So it's not only about the money available, right? You always I guess you find it if you really go for that. But to have a setting that helps us redesign our procedures, redesign the way how cities manage their cities and their projects, cross-sectoral, cross-disciplinary, out of the silos, opening up towards society and towards all these stakeholders, participatory approaches, reinventing how you understand public services. I think we would really make a big step if we keep on doing that.
Very good answer. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.